Good morning, everybody. If we could please stand for the pledge. Almighty God, we acknowledge that we have a responsibility to look after your creation, especially this region we call Barcaldine Regional Council. We are conscious that our decisions are going to affect deeply the people we have come here to serve. Assist us to exercise respect for councillors, staff and for the people of our region. Help us in this meeting to act wisely, justly and intelligently in all our deliberations. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of both leading and serving, and assist us to do these well. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you. Councillors' attendance book is there, sorry, so you've all seen it. All councillors are present. I to all the staff that are in the room today for our special meeting to adopt the 23-24 Barcaldine Regional Council budget. We will open with my summary, which will be circulated in a moment, and I will read into the record, and then I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to lead us through the budget documents. Excuse me. We will go through all of the documents as they are presented, and then move by adoption individually, move to adopt those resolutions individually at the end. So there will be a period of time of no resolutions whilst we're examining those budget documents one more time, and obviously for the first time in open meeting. However, we will ensure that the standing orders are maintained at all times through that. So just ask that we remember that we're now back in formal meeting today. I will read my summary of the budget documents as we have developed them. Ratepayers, community members, staff and councillors. The Barcaldine Regional Council 23-24 budget has been developed in the most difficult macroeconomic conditions of the 21st century. For once, we haven't been faced with deteriorating climatic conditions that are plunging or sustaining our region into drought. Yet the headwinds of the broader state, national and international economy have been keenly felt by Council as the budget has been developed. Cost of living is a phrase often widely used, with other levels of government able to use headline announcement running to the tens of billions of dollars in either direct cash handouts or through taxation relief. Low own source revenue-based councils like ours have massive limitations on their ability to provide similar relief due to our own spiralling costs and diminishing local capacity to sustain significant increases. However, predominantly the negatives in real terms for us will stop there, due to the significant budget repair undertaken over the last three budgets, where this council has taken extremely difficult decisions to ensure business units of council have been placed in a cash positive position, and our bottom line in terms of unrestricted cash has been not only placed under extreme monthly scrutiny, but restored to a positive trajectory. We have been able to withstand the need to raise rates, fees and charges massively in front of CPI to temper the storm, thereby providing real sustainable cost of living relief via softer increases. Council is also firmly on track to be debt free by 2030, relieving the annual repayment burden on council cash reserves and achieving a significant milestone that will provide for a stable foundation moving forward. This administration has taken a fiscally prudent approach to capital works. In plain terms, we have shifted from building monuments to undertaking capital projects that deliver at a base level for both the community and for council's asset management. This is manifested through road sealing, street upgrades and substantial generational upgrades to both sewerage and water assets. We have commenced substantial improvements to plant replacement and fleet utilisation, both to assist with immediate cash flow requirements and to ensure full capacity realisation. The capital program for 23-24 will largely be funded by external sources, with over $6.4 million supporting the delivery of a $10.2 million capital works program. This program is working through a backlog of renewal projects, while some new assets will add community value and contribute to operational efficiencies. Some of the highlights include town streets upgrades and renewals, floodway upgrade program, the rural road sealing program, a roads reseal program, cattle cross-loading facility, community buildings renewal program, sewage mains relining, our plant replacement program, and our housing renewal program. Within these highlights, I would like to single out the floodway upgrade program, or FUP. Council has identified that on several rural roads, the focus need not always be on one treatment over another in terms of asset maintenance or renewal. Following dedicated community consultation, Council developed the internal understanding that different roads in different geographical locations on different soil types require alternative solutions. This is in order to not only maintain the asset effectively and with targeted treatments, but critically to ensure road safety and minimise the costs incurred in vehicle maintenance by our regional residents and heavy vehicle operators. It has taken a while, perhaps too long, for this message to be heard internally by Council, but it has clearly now been identified in a targeted, funded capital works program. In a signal of support for the rural industry that underpins our economy and the heavy vehicle transport operators that are integral to it, Council has also committed to the construction of a cattle cross-loading facility. This will be located in Alpha at the termination of the East-West Triple Road train route, or Type 2, and will significantly improve not only driver safety and animal biosecurity outcomes, but provide for more structured parking and decoupling opportunities and facilitate enhanced tourism experiences. It will further capitalise on the previously delivered state government investment in the heavy vehicle rest area and further enhance this Council's road safety messages. From an operational perspective, there is much work to be done, with maintenance of our assets taking a critical focus with large water maintenance programs earmarked for the Jericho Water Treatment Plant, air scouring of mains and reservoir cleanouts. In previous budgets, this Council has seen substantial investment in our water and sewerage through both facility upgrades and sewerage telemetry installation and activation. This has seen the lowering of future operational costs and improvements in service delivery, as well as the reduction in demand-side water use. As a result, the Council continues to be in a position to maintain its stance on not charging for excess water. Another cost of living measure and underlining our approach to presenting our communities in the best manner possible without hitting the hip pocket of hard-working ratepayers. Housing is a significant issue for Council and the community. Sourcing accommodation options are critical parts of recruitment and retention of staff in all our towns, for both ourselves and our businesses. Council has resisted the temptation at this stage to invest your money directly in new or second-hand housing and has opted for the development of a housing strategy to inform any investments going forward. Investment in our systems and processes to ensure they are modern to reflect current practices is essential. Our IT systems have done the job for a long time, but now need to be upgraded to stay current with increasing cybersecurity risks. This budget begins the journey to a new enterprise system, along with a fresh operating environment. This is a significant project with significant opportunity to provide operating efficiencies for our staff. This budget at its core is aiming to reset the compass for the future in the wake of a wet season that has taken a massive toll on our rural roads. As a result of this flood damage, a significant focus over the next 2 years will be on delivering a program worth $50 million with works right across the region. A program of this size will really test the capacity of our staff and local contractors to deliver the full program within the 2-year time frame, whilst fully realising the capital capacity of this opportunity. General rates are being impacted in 23-24 by new property valuations. To continue to fund Council's operations and community service obligations, a general rates increase of 6% will be applied in this budget. In rural land, the average valuation increase was 153%. For the rural land rating category, a significant reduction of the rate in the dollar charged as a result of this valuation impact will occur. This adjustment will give Council 6% in additional general rates revenue. Sewage and water charges will increase by 6% as well. Both of these services will not cover their operational costs this year due to a number of projects mentioned earlier, although from a cash perspective, both will be positive. Operating costs of the waste collection contract are much higher than expected, and as a result, an increase for the waste charges in 23-24 will be in the order of 8%. This is not an ideal outcome for the community or council, but future budgets will need to continue to address the shortfall that has arisen due to the transition to a user-pays service. I have repeatedly said that despite commentators' opinions to the contrary, local government is clearly fundamentally responsible for its core functions of roads, waste, water and sewerage. Waste was a segment of council that required substantial adjustments to modernise and fully, truly cost recognise. This has resulted in some issues for Barcaldine town-based businesses in particular, and I expect that through our operational plan these concerns will be addressed whilst not exposing the broader community to cost escalations or unrealistic service expectations. Grants and subsidies play an important part for council in its budget. The Federal Assistance Grant continues to be the major contributor and will increase again this year due to sustained lobbying that I and others have undertaken over the course of the last 2 years, as well as now being prepaid fully, which clearly assists with cash flow management and will contribute to extra revenue via our investment strategy and capacity. The funding allocation for community events and special celebrations has been maintained, with community support and sponsorship continuing to be a critical community contribution we make as a council. The recent Queensland State Government budget delivered 2 key funding announcements for the Barcaldine Regional Council. One was the Barcaldine Renewable Energy Zone infrastructure funding. This will provide the base for the key infrastructure that facilitates the delivery of the single biggest economic enabler to be built in Western Queensland. Job creation outside of the traditional employment basis, along with embracing the transition to a zero carbon economy, positions the Barcaldine region to be the leader of Western Queensland in the emerging economy. The recognition within QTRIP in the budget of the Beef Road Corridors project also delivers certainty to workforce planning and road safety by the Queensland Government. This project will provide for substantial works opportunities as significant portions of the remainder of the state road network within our local government area boundary is progressively sealed. The road sealing will also significantly enhance road safety and mitigate weather impacts on the currently unsealed network. Overall, Council is expecting a small operating deficit, but with capital funding can expect a net profit of $5.2 million. Forecasts going forward are for this to improve towards a balanced budget in 25-26, although it is most likely that this may be brought forward due to the amendments in the size of the FAGS grant we receive in coming years. For those of you reading, you'll have to note that I left something out there. Increasing costs and continuing delays in delivery of goods have created the environment leading to 7.4% increase in inflation. That is an inescapable fact. With the projects in this budget and the continued fiscal responsibility we have placed on prudent tracking of expenditure, and whilst this is a tough budget, it is one that clearly and definitively places Council in a better, stronger position progressing. I commend this budget to the Chamber and to you all and the community as a necessary adjustment of underpinning fiscal requirements and delivery of required capital upgrades and works. Balancing the books in any environment is tough, but when charged with the additional responsibility of minimising any unnecessary harm to household budgets, it is infinitely more challenging. Can I please have someone move that that summary be received? Councillor Rogers, seconded Councillor Gleeson. Councillors who wish to add, I know this is titled as the Mayor's Summary, but I'm happy for debate or additional comments to be placed on the record. That being said, sorry. No. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? 7-0. So, as I outlined at the beginning, I'll turn the chair or the leadership of this next session over to, that's part of the meeting, over to Dan to lead you through the documents, not the resolutions, and we will return to the resolutions and enact the documents and approve the documents on the completion of our version. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll run through the documents that are included in the budget pack for councillors today. The first document is the statement of estimated income or statement of estimated financial position for the end of the financial year. Document's quite critical for us to be able to prepare our budget for next year to provide us with our opening balances. So understanding what we've got left this year does outline that. So in the budget, as the Mayor alluded to, the prepayment for the federal assistance grant, which we, in the budget documents at the time, was not expected until August, is looking like it'll be brought forward and to prior this week. So we haven't got that in the bank account yet, so given we have not reflected that in the documents, so that could significantly improve our end of year cash position as well. So that's not included in the documents yet. There is some additional revenue to be recognised and also to come through from our sales income and our grants and subsidies for other grants. So that is a positive for us going forward. And our trades and payables, there is a significant amount there that will be paid off before the end of financial year. So our cash position was forecast to be at $11 million at the end of financial year, likely to be a bit more now that the federal assistance grants come forward. It is a significant amount more at 11.3 that we have included in the budget documents, which was 10.4 million. So that is a good outcome for us as a council, and as the Mayor alluded to, will likely see us be able to achieve a surplus operating result a lot sooner than what we expected. The second document is the debt policy, a key budget policy that we adopt each year, and it reflects, just provides an update on our...
Sorry, Dan, to interrupt. Just so that we don't get dragged too far back, before we go to the debt policy, does anyone have any questions on anything that's presented in the statement of estimated income and expenditure or financial position documents? So I guess to summarise, the good news story is it's going to be better. We've received formal correspondence that our FAGS prepayment will be received on the 28th, which is tomorrow, and it will be 11.321 and a few dollars million. So whereas in other years, unfortunately, our estimated income and expenditure has been wound back. Last year we wound up substantially more, and this year it's going to be even more again. So we are provided these documents as a starting point for our budget. The good news is it looks like that once again the actual position that we'll recognise on the 30th of June will supersede what is presented here, but it won't create a black hole. In fact, it'll have the reverse effect. It'll enhance our ability to return to surplus and substantially improve our cash on hand come 1 July.
If I can, it's a positive position to be in. Your starting cash will be in a really strong point.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, it would be nice if the federal government could be relatively consistent in when and in what proportions they give those assistant grants out.
So, yeah, and I'll talk about that in my meetings in the next meeting, but it does look like there's been some movement around that.
True, Canberra was worthwhile.
So the debt policy, the review there that's taken place as part of this budget process was to reflect the updated balances of those those loans that we have currently. As the Mayor alluded to, looking to pay that out in the 2030-31 financial year to have those paid out in full. That's the only change in that document.
No questions, councillors? Thank you, Dave.
The investment policy is now the next document in the statement, so that is sort of providing a direction for council officers to be able to invest council's funds. It is largely limited to term deposits and also the QTC cash funds, which provides a good return on investment there in those two accounts. Additionally, in the budget, in the document, we have included the allowance for council to be able to make decisions to invest outside of that process, which the BRES would fall, investments into such projects as the BRES would fall into that. Obviously, with that sort of investment, there is additional approvals we need at the state level, but that would all come back to council for council's decision at that time, if that's the way council wishes to go.
Dean, only question I had, on the presentation of the budget documents 14 days ago, there was just a brief discussion around the fact that different credit rating agencies use different codes, and we suggested then, if my memory serves, that we just pick one rating agency so that the coding reflected that. But I don't know whether we need to update the investment policy or just note that in the amendment, in the resolution when we carry it, that we adopt the investment policy and utilise our rating agency, whichever one it was. Can anyone help me? Standard & Poor's, yeah. So do you want to do that? We'll just do that resolution if you like.
Yeah.
Debbie, if you can just make a note when we get back to this one, please, to include S&P. Further questions on the investment? Revenue?
Revenue policy, thanks Ms Mayor. The revenue policy is the next document. It talks about the allowance for council to levy our rates and charges along with our fees and charges to raise revenue to provide for the services that council is providing to the local communities. The key update there was just around the set out in the new template.
Questions?
Our fees and charges, through you, Mr Mayor, our fees and charges don't come through here, that comes later on, doesn't it?
The actual fee and charge, yes, that's a separate supporting document. This is the policy that allows for them to be levied and determines it. But the categories and the two reports here in a minute. One is the actual categorisation, and then the second is the fee attached to that category. Okay.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The revenue statement is the next document. This is what I refer to as the Rates Officer's Bible. It provides a set out of all the rates and charges that council levies and the mechanisms and definitions behind those. So if we have a look at the differential general rates categories on page 3 of that document of the revenue statement, the key addition there was around the public accommodation categories E and F have been added. More of a future proofing for our categories should we have properties that meet those definitions going forward. As the Mayor alluded to earlier, we have a 6% increase in our general rates. That's been reflected in the rating schedule on page 5 of the document. The minimum general rates have been increased to reflect that, and also the rate in the dollars have been increased across the board. The exception to that is the rural rating category. Due to the significant impact of the valuations, that rate in the dollar has been reduced quite significantly to ensure that the category generally as a whole was producing that 6% additional income in line with the rest of the categories. The water charges...
Just before we go on to water, questions on general rates, councillors, or rating categories? We're good.
In the water space, a 6% increase has also been applied to the rates across all water charges, and also council will not be charging for excess water in this financial year.
Okay.
In the sewerage space, we do have the 6% increase there as well to sewage charges, and in the waste charges there was an 8% increase applied to those, with council I was noting continuing to levy the waste management charge on a per parcel basis. Special charge for Muttaburra Rural Fire Brigade is included again, no change to that fee. It continues as it has in previous years. Levying of rates and charges will be issued in early September and early March this year, and the discount continues as it has previously. Interest on our overdue rates and charges has been increased in line with the maximum rate recommended by the Department of Local Government, which is 11.64%. For our council's approved concessions, pensioner concessions continues as it has previously, and our concessions for our not-for-profits has continued to go forward unchanged from what it has previously. What has changed is there was a number of properties identified as exempt from rating. These were not-for-profit organisations generally. A number of those were not charged rates to start with. And so what has happened is we've just combined them with the concessions. Three properties that have come across. So those property owners will continue to receive the rates as they have previously. It's just now that they're sitting under the concession for those rates as opposed to exempt altogether. So that is the revenue statement. There's a number of maps there included which shows the designated town areas for a number of different categories for water, sewage, general rates, and also rural fire.
Councillors, you will recall that I floated 14 days ago the possibility to assist with cash flow management, amending the dates for the levying of rates and charges. I didn't pursue that when it was made clear to me that we were receiving our FAGS payment 100% in advance. So that cushions substantially those interim peaks and troughs when we receive $11 million at the start of the year. So I thought that perhaps as we look at what our new software operating environment is, before we go radically altering the dates for rates and levying, the options that we've ruled out in the past because of the technical capacity or lack thereof to do it, be it monthly, quarterly, online issuing of rates, those sort of things, we might be better off holding until we can see what our new operating environment offers us as options, and that may be a better option than moving the rates, because we might have the option for people to pay their rates in monthly instalments or so there's a whole host of things there. So I did flag with you that we may tweak those at the budget meeting, and that is still your discretion to do that. I certainly took my foot off the accelerator when the word came out of Canberra that we were getting 100% of our FAGs up front, because the main reason I wanted to do this was to soften the hit on our cash that we historically always experience in January and February by moving the rates period from March forward. But anyway, so it's in your hands, but we did discuss that when we were presented these documents. I'm happy to leave it if you are. Any other questions within the revenue statement? Right. Financial statements.
Attachment 16, the financial statements, provides a three-year budget forecast for our financial statements. So the rates is reflected there on a forecast of what our revenue is based on those increases. Our fees and charges, we have looked at a increase there, just more generally based on the recommended increase to our fees and charges. Our sales income is much reduced from where it has been previous years, given the reduction in our main roads contracts, but our grants and subsidies, we're seeing a significant increase there from where we have been in previous years, reflecting the flood damage works that we are looking to do. That is a significant change in our, I suppose, accounting policy around the approach we take to flood damage going forward. We will be, in previous years, all flood damage works has been recognised as capital and wouldn't go through the profit and loss statement. The revenue would through the capital expenses, but now a lot of the work that is being undertaken in this flood damage program is maintenance, is maintenance grading. So we're reflecting that in the statements to show that going through the profit and loss. I suppose the benefit of that is it's an in and out transaction. The money spent on the road's brought back up to where it was, and then whereas when it's going through capital, it is increasing the value of the assets and therefore your depreciation going forward as well. So it is reflecting what it is, the impact on our financials longer term.
Well, to that, it actually does indicate there's some positive improvements as we go. So it's the recognition of where we are as a council, where we're heading.
No, so while there is a significant increase in income there for the grants and subsidies for that flood damage, that is also reflected in our expenditure for materials and services, with that being significantly higher for the first 2 years to reflect that flood damage, and then returning to, I suppose, what you would call normal levels in year 3. But given some of the, I suppose, uncertainty around when money coming through for the programs like the beef roads and what our allocation to that project is, that will likely change as that becomes more clearer as well going forward. In the financial position, statement of financial position, our cash position increases as a result of over the course of the 23-24 budget year. There is a small dip in 24-25, but we continue, you'll see in the 10-year forecast, a modest small increase to our bank balance going forward. Obviously with the federal assistance grant getting here before the end of financial year going forward, that will have an impact on what that cash position is at that point in time going forward.
It's effectively going to make it nearly double. So our end year cash position will move from around 12 million to around 21, 2, 3, depending on sales revenue at the same time, which is it's not false money. It's not like we're receiving flood damage in advance and we're sitting on it. It's actually our money. So it's instead of waiting all year to be paid it, we're actually getting it up front, and it is therefore there. So it's not a false indicator, it's real money.
It provides us with the opportunity to get some additional investment income as well. Receiving that money earlier in 100%, it does provide us that opportunity as well.
Just as a little note, Mr Mayor, is just taking into account and waiting and see what the Grants Commission does say, that you're not going to get 3/4 of money during the year, so there's no inflow during the year from grants, so that's going to have a little impact on
It'll be marginal. So they've indicated to us in writing that the adjustment payments will still be paid in those quarterly instalments. So, yeah. So
but that'll be
minor,
very,
very, very minor.
I think there's going to be some councils that will run into a real serious cash flow problem because they'll get a sugar hit up front. It's the same as what they've all been crying out now to get this upfront payment. It's going to amplify for some councils, so it's got to be controlled.
You think they're going to have a cash issue further they go with the next financial year because of the upfront payment?
Yeah.
It just means we focus on our expenditure and our cash flows.
But I think
For the years.
Barcaldin's done very well in the increases, and there is some councils that have gone down by looking at the whole Queensland Grants Commission. We've done very, very well, so has a couple of our neighbours.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Attachment 17, the budget document. So this is where we start to get in some of the more detail of what's happening going forward. If we look at our revenue and expenditure across our 5 goals, so in goal 1, communities, a number of the services there have continued as they have previously, with income obviously increased to reflect the increases in rates and fees and charges. And there's also some of the general increases to our expenditure to reflect obviously CPI and also wage growth as well in those spaces. In goal 2, in our services space, the water, as we've indicated earlier today, there is some additional projects happening this year in the operational space, which does see the net result for water being a loss this year. A couple of those projects, the air scaring and also the reservoir cleanouts, are periodic and happen every couple of years. So rather than trying to recoup the monies to ensure it continues to be profitable year on year, if we take a longer term approach, we can see in year 2 and year 3 it is returning and covering that deficit for that program this year. The income in sewerage and costs in sewerage is a similar situation. There is some increased operational projects happening in the sewerage program this year. Does see that net income slightly less than it has been in the last couple of years. Waste does have the 8% increase in charges for waste collection and waste management does start to eat away at some of that deficit we are experiencing in that space. Plant continues to perform well along with our care services. Particularly note is our NDIS, which continues to forge ahead with really strong results there. In the commercial services, the Bank of Queensland is continuing to be, the commissions from that service is continuing to perform quite well going forward. And we also included the rapid costs, which is around our contract as a treasurer for the organisational Outback Regional Roads Transport Group and the Water and Sewage Alliance as well. So that service is continuing. We do have a much better system in place now for managing those, our role as a treasurer going forward for the other councils in the Rapid Group. In Goal 3 in the transport, as we've mentioned, you can see the flood damage is having a big impact in that space, while our contract works is limited basically to our RMPC works in that space. So flood damage has kind of come at a good time when we haven't got a lot of main roads coming on, so it does give us a real good shot at trying to get that program finished over the next 2 years. Goal 4, probably a key change in this space is around our sale yards fees and dip fees, particularly at the Alpha clearing yards there. They are, given the changes to the tick scratching process now, can be cleared on farm, has seen a significant reduction in the use of our facility down there, and as a result our revenue is now reflecting that. Camping areas is continuing to be a good outcome for us. We are receiving a lot of use of our facilities, and revenue is reflecting that increase. Retained in there is also the regional events support that we provide in the events that we operate for the community as well. That budget has been maintained. In Goal 5, not a great deal of change overall in this space. We do have a number of the costs, I suppose, rolling forward and from where they have been in previous years. That is the revenue expenditure.
Questions? Capital Works.
Capital Works first.
Oh, sorry, well that's first in line, sorry.
By the operating, but it's right. I just had the page upside down. So, Capital Works program, we have.
I'm upside down too, so that way I just started first.
We have grouped a number of projects into programs going forward, and that sort of allows, I suppose, the budget forecasting for our capital works to reflect, particularly in our renewal programs, to reflect some of the depreciation costs to ensure that we are renewing those programs. We are putting together asset management plans, which will better inform what those renewal programs are going forward for our different asset classes as well. So in the community buildings program space, a number of projects are outlined there for renewal. The Alpha Showgrounds, lights renewal, the Aramac Town Hall, bathrooms. At the pool here in Barcaldine, there is a couple of projects for a renewal of the canteen and also a barbecue and tables as well. In Jericho, there's the showground facility renewal, which is looking at some of the buildings replacement there, and also probably a highlight is 2 programs for our cemetery fencing, but also our Anzac Memorial Enhancement Program. So those 2 programs, officers are putting together those projects that we see as the priorities, and we'll bring them back to council for adoption prior to any work commencing in those 2 programs. The one new project that is in there is the Barcaldine Rec Park Stage 3, which we've received grant funding for. There is a small contribution from council of that project, but that is a $400,000 project, $415,000 project there. The community equipment replacement is looking at some of our equipment that supports our community infrastructure to be replaced. Of note is an investment in our TV equipment, which is nearing the end of life and needs renewal. In the water space, there is some work to be done on our water mains, but that will be used with the carry forwards money. Also, at Jericho, there is a replacement of the water treatment plant fence. In the council buildings, the housing renewal program, as the Mayor alluded to earlier, and also an investment in our IT replacement. The sewerage, looking to do a couple of relining programs in our sewer manholes and sewer mains. There is quite a large amount of sewer mains that we identified as high priority. That program is commencing in Muttaburra and Aramac this year. The plant, there's some projects, there's some equipment for our Aramac workshop to be replaced this year, and also a plant replacement program of 2.8 million this year. So that's similar to some of our other programs. The final list of what is being purchased in that program will come back to council for individual approval. Rural roads and town streets. The flood damage does have some capital elements to it as well, so that is included there across our 5 submissions. And then also the town streets upgrade program and town streets renewals and sealed road renewal programs. All those programs will come back to council with the final list for sign off prior to work commencing.
Questions?
Mr Mayor, can I just ask with these figures and being in the budget for the 25-26 forward years, outward years, how binding are they?
They're not.
They're not.
No, everything changes. Nothing binding more than 12 months, really.
Okay.
And there's, and as the directors said, the figures that exceed $200,000 in gross expenditure individually always come back to this room, and you have to come back to this room for approval. So there's even the ability to tweak within 12 months. Obviously, it can be challenging from a planning perspective, but those ones that are out 2 years, they're not binding. They're indicative of forward works, both to the community and to staff around planning. But until we enter the year that they've highlighted for and that budget's adopted, no binding.
There's so many things can change over a 12-month period, can't they?
Yeah. We've seen that ourselves over 3 years of doing a 3-year, trying to flesh out a 3-year budget. There's not priorities that have been in the outer years have not always manifested coming into the forward years. Some of them have stayed out there altogether and others have been dropped altogether. And some have jumped the queue, so it moves very quickly.
I guess if I can add to that, that was the reason we want to bring the schedules back to council, so the fluid as it goes, so council can decide yes or no.
Within a year.
Whether it's planned or set on priorities.
Yep. Now, through you, Mr Mayor, Dan, you've said that some of these programs, and especially, town streets programs and all those things will come back to council, but some of those things that we've had earmarked that need to be done, they won't be forgotten about because we've made everything regional.
Well, it's up to us to make sure they're not forgotten. That's when it comes back to us.
So in the budget discussions, we have talked about potential projects in some of those programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they'll stay on that list for council consideration before anything's put forward. I suppose additionally, even the projects that are being put forward in this year's budget, if they're adopted today, council can make a decision next month to not proceed with the project as well. So there's even in this year's budget, there is an ability there to change the goalposts.
If I could, the argument for that is we could have another rain event, so our priorities change where we focus on that, so we don't have the resources to put everywhere else.
Excuse me, Matt. Can I ask a question, please? Going back to the community building programs, we were asked by the community to to upgrade, upgrade power at Jericho and look at water systems for Jericho and switchboard upgrades for the Jericho Hall, those sort of items. In our discussions, the district managers were going to come back with a report of what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. And in this budget here now, we haven't allocated any money at all to this next year, to those projects. So are that projects completely gone, or?
Next page, Councillor Gleeson, some of them are operational. So the Jericho sprinkler system you just mentioned.
Some are operational.
So you just mentioned Jericho sprinkler system, that's still in at 10,000.
The next page is
Operational, but I'll let the director answer the rest of that.
Yeah, so some of those projects, we haven't provided that information, so the Alpha, I think a couple of them around the switchboard upgrades at the town halls, and we haven't got that safety issue identified yet. We have had, even in the last couple of weeks, we have had one of our switchboards, I think it's at the Alpha office, had to be upgraded for a safety issue, so that has been actioned. But the onus was for us to bring back a report to say that they need to be done due to electrical safety issues, and we haven't got that yet, so that's why they haven't come back.
Councillor Gleeson, I can also just point you to the Jericho Town Hall switchboard upgrade is in the budget slated for 2025. It's listed under Community Buildings Program. Specifically there, not in capital works, not operational. So it is still included, just not budgeted to be this year.
it's two different pages.
So about the operational and capital works. No, sorry, I did direct you to operational, but it's not. It's actually in capital works. So it's in that report. It's about 10 lines from the top.
Yeah, it's moved out to 25 year.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Mayor. Any of those projects that have been moved out to 25 year, if we discover in the next 12 months, and there's a report comes back that these facilities do require for safety purposes, we can do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to make that clear.
If I can just answer that, anything to do with safety, we would make that a priority, whether it's community or staff safety. We don't hold back on that. So.
Thank you.
So the operational budget projects, which have been included in this budget as well, is the School Awards Nights, so that continued community support there. So the ATM at Jericho Post Office is being installed in the early new financial year as well. The Alpha Showgrounds maintenance, that is a project to do some repairs to our fencing around the arena. The Barcaldine Rec Park drainage is included as well. Some maintenance works there under the building, which is eroding away a little bit, and we need to rectify that. Probably a key operational item, which is more of a strategic direction, is the master plan for the showgrounds and the rec park here in Barcaldine. So that is really about ensuring the community we're positioning those two facilities going forward for where the community wants to see them go, and they will act, but also ensure that council can service those facilities in that direction as well. They will be used somewhat as a template for other major facilities in our region as well. So while it is a significant investment, it is longer term. It does have some real return to ensure that we're setting up those facilities appropriately from a maintenance and operations perspective for council. The Jericho sprinkler system repairs is there as well. That is looking to really cut down on some of our staff time in having to move sprinklers around and repair when there's a system in place, just getting that back up and running. We mentioned the water treatment plant at Jericho maintenance works earlier, and also the couple of other water projects that are included. We received funding for a new STP sewage treatment plant design at Aramac. So there is a small contribution for that project from council. I think total value of that project is $95,000. A couple of our systems to support staff in the corporate space is our new enterprise system, and also the electronic fuel monitoring system as well going forward. Investment in our apprentices and trainees program as well is being expanded on our current offering, and a training and development program to give our staff the opportunity to continue to develop, maybe in a field that is not their current line of work, but certainly allowing them to develop that as well, to enhance their employability here at council.
Just have that succession planning and opportunities.
So that I should add that that investment is on top of our current training program, which is more targeted at the moment to our mandatory training and our job-specific training that we have for those staff. Managed IT services, so this is an investment to really get council set up in a space where we can meeting our, I suppose, managing our risk in the IT space. We don't have that capability in-house currently, so while we don't have that, tapping into industry professionals to provide that service for us and ensure our systems are functioning and operating as they should, providing that level of security for our organisation and our community, for that matter, their information as well. The local government elections is one that we have to fund as well going forward, and then the council promotional activities, so looking at investing some money to get some systems and programs in place for the promotion of council's media and communications with the local community and the wider region.
Questions? Okay, 10 years.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The 10-year forecast there is one of our required budget documents. It gives us a projection of where our financials are going longer term across our three statements. The revenue continues to have us as we mentioned earlier, does have a peak in the next 2 years, particularly around flood damage, and then returns to what you would call somewhere normal levels. We have factored in some additional sales revenue there to support the budget, but that is reflected in the material and services as well. So it does give us a good position going forward to ensure that we have a small profit ongoing for the 10-year program. What we have probably understated is the capital grants and revenue. We have done a lot better than $2.5 million year on year. But that's what we've factored in as I suppose, a starting point for that program. So as we mentioned earlier, the cash position does continue to increase as we project out towards 2032, 2033. The last document there is our material in that 10-year forecast is our material measures of financial sustainability. This is the three measures we're required under to report on as part of our annual budget, but also our annual performance in the annual report. So the three sustainability measures there, currently around the asset sustainability ratio. Target is to be hitting higher than 90% renewal, which is a formula that looks at what our capital replacement is versus our depreciation expense. And we are hitting that target going forward. So given that we did flag through the budget process, there was somewhat of a backlog in our infrastructure renewals. That is showing why we are effectively over funding that this year for this year's depreciation. But going forward, you can see that drops back to north of the 90%, which is where we need to be. The net financial liability ratio looks at our ability to cover our liabilities with our current assets and our operating revenue. So that needs to be less than 60%, and we are well and truly got that covered for the next 10 years. The operating surplus ratio looks at our current year performance on our ability to return on operating surplus, so it excludes our capital expenses and revenue for that matter. So looking at that, as we indicated, for the next 2 years, we are still looking at a deficit, but it has well improved from where we've been in previous years, despite the trend that we've had. So we're trending back to where that surplus is, but with the early payment of the federal assistance grant, that will certainly have likely to be somewhere near a balanced budget for this year. But once we have more clarity on what that number is, our first budget review in October, we'll look at certainly making that adjustment that needs to be made.
That adjustment's going to have a significant impact on the annual report and the financial statements, which you also present in October for the current year.
Yep, will do.
All in all, it's a positive response.
Second last document we have for the budget documents is it's just a statement of, I suppose, council recognising the overall increase to rates and utility charges or the change. So the 6% is reflected in the general rates, water and sewage, and the 8% in our waste. The reason it varies is it looks at income rather than what the rate is that's increased. So given that we do have a small amount of growth in our number of properties throughout the year, that is reflected in that increase in the general rates.
Questions?
Charges?
No questions? Fees and charges.
So the fees and charges, council, the fees and charges schedule for 23-24 is in front of you. I won't go through it in detail. I'll just point out some of the variances from where and an overall summary of some of the changes that are in the fees and charges. So given the impacts of CPI and also labour increases, we have taken the approach that the recommended overall increase to our fees and charges should be 6.2%, so that's slightly less than CPI for this year. The fees and charges provide council with about $2.8 million per year and is governed by the Head of Power and the Local Government Act and Local Government regulation. If I point out some of the changes and increases or variances from that 6.2% in the fees and charges. So in the aged care space, a fee has been created for a disability access ramp that we can hire out. So there is quite a period of time between the request for those permanent ramps to be installed as part of the community care programs. So in the meantime, we have a couple of ramps that we can hire out to those residents so they can, while they're waiting for that ramp to be fabricated.
And that high cost would be borne by their relevant program, whether it was CHSP or NDIS.
In the building fees, we've undertaken a few changes with there being a recommendation to remove the cost of travel expenses as part of the building application. So this cost going forward will be borne by council to allow the cost of building in the region to be uniform across the entire region, regardless of where you are. The property compliance inspection has also been removed as it's no longer required. And there's also some consistency applied in the inspection fees across the board to now be charged on a per inspection basis as opposed to a per assessment basis. The security bond for the demolition of dwellings is no longer required. It's not usually a fee that's charged. It was just, I think, because it was wrapped up with dwelling removal, which was the transporting of the dwelling. That's why it was in there previously, and so we've now separated that out or noted that there's no security bond to be charged for when that application is being undertaken. And there's also a fee being established for dongers, for both temporary and permanent dongers, for class 1 and 10. So there is additional inspection that's required as part of that, which is now reflected in the fees. In the community facility space, a key change there was the removal of the hire of, at our showgrounds particularly, the hire of lights has been removed and is included as part of the venue hire now. For our seasonal users, this fee has now been incorporated as part of their annual fee. So there is quite a large increase for those seasonal users, but they no longer will be charged the light charge for the hire each week for their season. Additionally, there is a fee also for the users of our council managed racecourses, racecourse, in line with that with the other seasonal users. Animal fees, a key change in this space was the removal of the 3-year registration for dogs. It's been replaced for the first and second dog to now be a lifetime registration going forward. And just probably note that fee is not refundable, so council.
It's worth mentioning. You don't want the dog, you take the money.
Thank you, Dan. He's provided the comic humour for the morning. You've got us laugh.
Council house rent has been increased in line with the overall increases in fees and charges. However, it probably should be noted that we are reviewing our council housing, as the Mayor mentioned earlier, for a strategy going forward. And should there be any fees changes or change in the fee structure for the housing, that will be brought back to council for consideration at that time. So no changes to the current approach to our council housing rent. And also the Aramac Bakery commercial lease has been removed, as well as the property has now been sold.
Okay, councillors, fees, questions? Councillor Plum.
Mr Mayor, I noticed that the stock group charges are going into the next meeting, the new charges. So should this apply in here, or will we move it so that we bring it into the new stock group charges?
So they're a statutory fee charged by the state, and there's a few other fees around things like RTI, right to information fees as well, that we have to bring back once they're finalised by the state.
Because I noticed that they start as on the 1st of July, that's what I noticed.
Yeah, we'll bring them back to council when we've got those finalised.
They're a statutory charge, so they're not rusted.
We don't get any say over what they are anyway. We have to apply what the state gives us.
So do we bring that to them in the next meeting and then apply them? Is that what we do?
We'll note them, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr Mayor, on that, I had a quick read of that the other day, that they were charged by per 20 head.
They were.
No, in the new document too, they're going to be charged per 20 head. And those fees are still very minimal.
Oh, there wasn't this depth of reform that was requested by the sector didn't materialise.
Yeah. So those charges are still going to be
Woefully inadequate for what is required for the maintenance of both the primary and the secondary outlet. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's how I read it too. It's just, yeah.
Once again, we're powerless to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Not only was the decision delayed well past when it should have been made, the outcome wasn't what we were looking for either as a sector or as industry. No, it doesn't benefit anybody because industry suffers when the route's not maintained. The only reason the route's not maintained to the level that it needs to be is because it's not funded appropriately. Some councils around us, such as Wimp and Blackall, lose literally hundreds of thousands of dollars loss on maintenance of their stock.
Yeah.
And that will continue. Further questions on fees?
Yes, just the horses on commons have gone from 6 to 650, is that right?
It's gone to 66.50.
Well, it is 650 in this document.
50 cents a head.
Yep. Look, most of those are kids' ponies and what have you. I disagree with that increase at all. I don't know what the rest of my co-councillors think, but, you know, they're mainly just a few kids' ponies and people that have a horse or something, you know, and we've got the $6.50 a week to have that bit of recreation in an animal out there. So does that need to increase that 50 cents?
I'm assuming it's gone up by 6.
6%, then it's been rounded, so that's why it's a little bit more than 6%.
What was it?
I'd say it would have been $6.
$6. Councillors?
I personally don't have that much of an issue with it. Horses are expensive, and those that I don't own one, but those that own one know that, and they're probably more destructive to some of our common areas.
Councillor Plum?
Is there that many of them?
District managers?
We have about 40 on Aramac Town Commons, Demarin, and about 7 on Munnabara Town Common.
Gee, Mr Mayor, we wouldn't have that many, we have about 10 up there.
57?
I'm not central, I'm sorry. What horses we'd have up there, I have seen a couple that have come through, but yeah, we wouldn't have anywhere near what Paula's got.
Oh, yeah, I'd be guessing. Wild guess too. I would have thought Alpha would have been in line with Buck Corbin. I don't think there's any on the Jericho Common.
Yeah,
Actually, I'm sure there's not.
I think there'd be less than 10.
So how many 40? Some 40.
47, wasn't it?
And they're all ponies and
Well, what, sorry, Councillor Plum?
they're all ponies. I don't buy them, there are a lot of horses in them.
Oh, some families got 5 ponies there, yeah. So they're paying, what, $33 a week. And when you work it out, at those figures that the Mayor just chased about 60 horses right across the Shire, we're probably looking at $30 a week that we're making.
Councillor Rogers?
Previous Mayor, are some of those ones, horses at Aramac, are they from Harry Reid?
No,
Are they to provide them?
no,
Some of them?
no.
Yeah, I think, unless the numbers explode over the next, if we keep an eye on the numbers, I agree with Gary.
Councillor Field?
Councillor Peebles, that
You agree?
it's true that we, kids' ponies, that's what people live out here, and have the opportunity to do that sort of recreation.
Councillor Plum, where were you? Sorry, I didn't ask. You gave an opinion, but you didn't state whether you're in favour of 650
I
or 6.
didn't realise, Mr Mayor, that there were so many horses and there were so many ponies that belong to the children of Aramac, so I'm quite happy to go with the $6.
Councillor Gleeson?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is an increase of $26 per year per horse. Most of them are. So, and horses, two sides of the fence, horses do eat a lot of grass and they are expensive to look after, and people that have got horses should realise that. But then on the other hand, an extra $26 if families have got an extra couple of horses, it is an extra cost. So I am leaning towards Councillor People's recommendation.
Councillor Heads?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I sort of agree with Councillor Peoples, but probably for other reasons is that it gets our kids out of the house, away from TVs. So it gives them outdoor activities. I'm sort of more inclined to
It's funny when you did it.
I thought it was funny when it happened to you.
Just sort of just put the idea of the kids out of the house.
Alright, so there's a clear majority for the amendment of the fee to $6 from, or reverting it to $6 as opposed to the increase of $6.50. Further questions on fees?
Mr Mayor, I'll just raise another one, the caravan parks over there, I think they're $20 now, we've raised it to 21, which means we've got to change all the signage for $1. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, well, if you're going to change the signage, we'll put it to 41. Come on, that'll be out.
25.
I would concur. $1 change for thousands in signage is probably not appropriate, but
Wouldn't you just put a sticker over the numbers?
I'm just struggling to recall what the signs look like and how many of them we've got. So we've definitely got them in Aramac and Munnabara. Do we have one here? I don't think we do.
Dear Mr Mayor, we only have one, we don't advertise the fee.
The fee's not listed.
No, we don't include the fee because it changes annually, so we only have the information about that we had to have up.
And we use honesty boxes, Mr Mayor, $1 coins and $2 coins are. I think I'm in agreement with you, when we do change it, it'll be to 25 or something.
Yeah, make it a worthwhile change. Given tourism's not necessarily rushing us off as well, although they're back now, they are back now, they're back good now, and they were actually back early in Aramac, to be fair, they were busier there than they were elsewhere, but personally I'm in a bit of a Councillor Gleeson, 20 or 21, bearing in mind that we do have signage in some places to change.
Mr Mayor, all the fees have gone up in every camping facility throughout the Shire by only a very small, limited amount. Moving forward, I think everything's got to go up, and signage and computers and whatever has to change. I can't imagine there'd be thousands of dollars in signs just for. It wouldn't cost us thousands of dollars to change one number on the signs, would it?
No, not once. But then next year, if it goes to 22, then you're going to do it again, and then 23, and then 24. And do you delay your change until you get to a point where you have to lift it, and then the sign change is justified? That's what I'm ambivalent either way on it. Councillor Hanson.
Through you, Mr Mayor, if it was a change of $5, I'd say yes, we could change the signage. I think under a $5 change, yeah, possibly better off leaving it as a reevaluated next year.
But does that then mean we only go up in $5 increments, which could be every 5 years and probably most likely gets forgotten? Might it not be a better idea to take the dollar value off the signage so that we can increase it regularly, as opposed to waiting 5 years and jumping it from 20 to 25?
Point. Councillor Plum.
Make it 25 and freeze it for 3 years.
We don't have the ability to freeze it, Councillor.
Go back to, I just think $21 is cheap.
So you want to leave it at 21? Sorry, leave it at 20 or lift it?
Leave it at 20.
Right.
Agrees, yeah, I agree with Councillor Eccles. We should leave it at 20 at the moment.
Councillor Gleeson. Oh, sorry.
Have a look at the signs that do need replacing and how many there are. Talk about it next budget.
Councillor Gleeson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The changes are right across the board. Alpha, Jericho.
Alpha doesn't have it.
Sorry?
Alpha doesn't have it.
Barcaldine. So the changes are right across the board. If we elect not to change one, we really should be not changing any, and therefore we'll run into trouble with Barcaldine and with the tourism with the local caravan parks.
Well, the proposal, I think, from Councillor Peoples was to lift them all, I think. Is that right?
Leave them all as is.
Not the $1 change. The situation certainly in Buckhorn is that we are supposed to not charge
Any less than.
anything less than
The highs,
than the
commercial. Is that right?
the highest. Yeah.
3%.
So, Mr Mayor, the Barcaldine fee has actually gone up $2 because it's 36, so that really is to match the
Councillors, would we, like, if this was enacted in 3 days' time, the fees would amend. That's the intended fees and charges. Do you want officers to come back with what the cost to update the signage, whether the option is with a sticker or a new sign, and we make a decision about this in October, November for the new tourism season, which can be amended to come into play? Like, what I'm saying is our systems are already set at what they are for this year anyway. If we hold at exactly what we've got, we get a cost. If the sign's only going to cost $200 and we put signs up without the dollar figure on them, or if with the sticker option, someone has a look at that and sees whether it hasn't, it's not going to look tacky, we can make a decision in October, set the new fees for the new tourist season and have the new signs on site and installed, because I can see there be a problem in Aramac. Straight away, if we adjust this today and the sign says 20, there'll be somebody, it said it was $20 and that's where it should stay. So I think we can hold for this season, which has only got a few months left to run, make a decision in the off season, advertise that and wait for the sign, and then ensure the signage is installed ahead of next season. We're not foregoing, we would be foregoing, considering we're halfway through tourist season now, we're only talking about a few dollars in this season that are impacted, and we'll have it in line with where it may need to be for the 24 tourism season. Is that a middle ground that we can do for today until we realise what the signage costs?
Yep.
Mr Mayor, just on that signage, if you want to advertise a price, have that little section where it's a detachable, where you can change that little amount. Yeah, just so you take it on and off so it doesn't.
Well, let's have a look at that.
Can I just add, through you, away from signage, I think it's very important that we keep in mind that the returns to our communities, down our main streets and everything, from having these prices that are reasonable, so as people pull up here, because some of our other councillors are getting named for their prices being too expensive. So something to keep in mind that it's a good ploy by us trying to pull them up here in our communities.
To follow up with the Councillor Peoples, you go over to Blackwall and there's free parking down along the Barcoo, and it is just loaded with caravans. They free park because they're going to have to walk 200 metres up to Main Street.
You go out of the Thompson River in Longreach and it's free parking out there, and you can't move out there.
Yeah, I mean, you go anywhere around Alpha because it's all free, and you go out here, it's free, and free wherever you go, free parking will always trump any sort of paid parking. Like the other night I drove into Alpha, 10:30 at night from Emerald, and I saw there was, some caravans there, and I shone my lights around through the caravan park, and then I stopped and done a U-turn and gone back and counted. There was 27 caravans on the eastern side of Native Companion, just parked in the area that we mowed, right on the side of the road. Not one caravan in the caravan park, not one. So, it's not something unique only to local governments trying to find the charge. It's a commercial caravan park is what I'm saying, and even they struggle for market share. So, but I'm happy that could form part of our overall strategy to look at this, and that they are good revenue raisers for us, particularly Barcaldine, Aramac and Muttaburra. Redbank's so-so, can be good, Jericho can be good too, but I wouldn't put it in the league of these three. Aramac this last 18 months has been very solid. Muttaburra has historically always been good, of course, it's a popular little place, but Aramac has been very, very good. And Barcaldine has caught back up again this year now. It was a bit slow starting, so all right. A little bit of work there.
Through To the Mayor, sorry, the Red Bank signage is out of date anyway and needs to be updated. So I can certainly have a look at that and come back to the next.
I think we've got to bundle the work there, Dan and Shane, to let's do this holistically and we can look at the fees and charges in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Quarter one review. So a little bit of work for you, sorry to have to amend that back to the 23.
That's all right. That's all right. That's
Couple of
it.
entries.
Any further questions on fees and charges?
Three, Mr. Mayor. So considering like the loss that we make on the airport,
Yep.
the landing fees, is our landing fees and fees at the airport like equivalent to other airports?
I have to check for you, councillor.
Just-
It's a little bit lower than what Queensland Airports Limited charge in Longreach. We first looked at this a couple of years ago. Whatever we charge, Qantas charge the consumer. So I remember the conversation, not without the details, we said then that we wanted to be mindful we didn't charge too much on the basis that it's not going to affect Qantas, it'll affect those leaving and landing. But
Leaving like from Barcaldine or Longreach, when you ring up for a local fare, it doesn't really, like the last few times I was on, it's been the same wherever you leave from, even though they may have, I don't know if they've got a higher thing or not, I haven't had a look at theirs, but yeah, I was just thinking maybe we could step up a bit next time. Just, it costs us a lot there.
well, more regular flights would.
Yeah, actually.
The breeze kicking off, if we were to shift to 5 flights a week instead of 3, all of a sudden
Yeah,
you amplify your landing, you know, so
yeah.
I'm not sure how it's
That's-
taxed. I think QAL charge for every passenger that's on the plane anyway, whereas I think we only charge here. So for example, sorry,
We got a landing fee
yeah,
for the aircraft, and then also a per passenger fee as well.
yeah, but Longreach get 2 bites of the cherry because there's quite a number of the passengers never get off there because they're from here, so are they counted?
I couldn't answer that question, Mr. Mayor.
They do it quite every
Which is why someone else wanted to own it, so yeah, anyway, councillors.
I would guess no, we don't pay for those. We don't pay for those ones that don't get off.
No, and whereas I think the difference is in Longreach, they charge for everyone that's on the plane. This my intel was the case.
They'd be getting off the plane.
I've never flown from Barcaldine to Brisbane, so I can't tell.
We don't
You
get
deep
off the
plane?
plane.
No.
Very rarely, unless there's
We
a
stay
maintenance issue or something, you stay on there while they refuel and.
And the thing about when you land here, say on a Saturday or one of the 3 days that it lands, those people on the plane that are going to Longreach are landing here too.
And I would suggest to you that we don't charge for anyone that doesn't deplane.
That's right. That would be my assumption.
Yeah, I think it's the only record we'd have because we wouldn't know who else was on the plane because the passenger manifest to Barcaldine, BCI,
Gets off.
that would be what we would charge accordingly. Whereas, so Jenny?
To you, Mr. Mayor, Qantas actually tell you those passenger numbers. Yes, they tell you how many arrive and depart. So I would.
Just a bit of history, Mr. Mayor, that used to be a very, very topical subject in council in Longreach when Longreach used to run it. And I think Longreach were the only one for about a long period of time that actually charged landing fees. Blackall never charged landing fees, controversial. And then once Queensland Airports took it over, they raised the fees significantly and nobody said a word because they can't contest it. And then I think, Blackall and Longreach joined on and said we can get some money out, we keep a bit of money, but yeah, it was a huge thing because in council, and as soon as it was taken over by private enterprise, nobody said a word.
So, to you, Mr. Mayor, so they have told us, so this is just say for May, it said that there were arrivals of 158 adults and 5 children, and there were departures of 152 and no children. I'm just trying to recall the spreadsheet they give you.
That's ours.
Pardon?
That'd be all right.
Yeah, so that's what they give us.
And that's for how long, Chair?
That's 1 month,
That's a month.
yeah, so they provide that information to us.
But really, people flying from here to Brisbane that go to Longreach, and they land in Longreach, they would be paying a landing fee. But people coming from Brisbane that land here and then go on to Brisbane, we don't charge them a landing fee.
The Longreach, yeah.
So Longreach are charging the people at Barcaldine to fly to Brisbane, and the people that are flying from Brisbane to Longreach, we don't charge when they land here.
Because we're only charging on that spreadsheet that Qantas give us.
Yeah.
So the landing fee is there if you like. So we'll just deal with it. Okay, council uses the same format for everything.
That would be too easy, Mr Mayor.
No, I think so. Accountants with the big tax return, which make sure bank charges are top of the list on accountancy fees.
They don't have any fee charges, Mr Mayor.
Oh, of course they don't, because it's not their fair charge.
No.
They don't own the airstrip, sorry. It's not a local government levied charge. You
No,
have to go-
Norwich
That's right, it's QAL. So, yeah, that's right. It wouldn't, we would have no way of knowing that publicly. That'd be a private commercial relationship between QAL and Qantas.
Yep.
That wouldn't be publicly disclosable. And in fact, I would suggest that QAL would lock very tightly what they charge at their airstrips, because it would be extremely commercially sensitive information. But you're right, I do remember that when it was an astronomical escalation of fees.
And it used to make a significant loss in there, the rest of the rate pays it. Number up.
Probably enterprise don't run things at a loss for fun. All right, Councillor Rogers has proposed that we consider a lifting of the landing fee. Councillor Pickles.
Mr Mayor, I'm probably going to say no, for the simple reason is that it just goes on to the fare for people to fly anyway. So I'd be more interested in trying to capture everyone that landed here, but that's a different.
Before I go to other councillors, in fairness to Councillor Rogers, because this is new to us a little bit, can I suggest that, just like we've done with camping areas, that we get a more detailed understanding of the capacity to increase it, do some more homework on cost comparison. We'll have a yarn with Qantas as well. I know Adam Humphries, the regional manager, quite well, and whilst he won't give you commercial and confidence information, he'll certainly give us an indicative idea of what's static around the state, and we can bring that back to a meeting where we can have the whole suite of information. I mean,
Through this now, I agree, like also because some of these landing fees are only for light aircraft, it's not for the Qantas plane. And also there's the refuelling and there's more than just Qantas plane landing fee.
so
So it'd be good to see that information.
have a good look at what airport fees and charges. Jenny?
To you, Mr Mayor, I've just gone on to Michael Tango, and their landing fees are RFDS and air ambulance are exempt, and they do it per tonne, so you need to know the tonnage of the plane, and it's $8.40. Their passenger adult fee is $18. Their passenger child is $10.30, so which is the same price as Visa's ours.
And then there's also a passenger and checked baggage screening charge of $14.
Which is
Which will
ironic.
be exempt now, because we don't do
There's
it.
no baggage screening anymore.
But checking.
Oh, checking in.
Yes, because they are also the Qantas agent.
Right.
So yes, that would make a difference there. They are also the Qantas, they do the Qantas handling as well.
So of course,
Comes around there.
you pay an extra $14 on top of that. Right, all right, well, we'll have a more deep dive into airport, the business unit airport over the coming few months, and better inform the preparation for next year, and perhaps if necessary amend earlier. I do think, just out of, Qantas are a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company, but if we were to propose lifting the landing fees, we're not by any means obligated to, but I do think it would be in order to have a conversation with them about what our proposal might be before we enact it, just to sense get a sense of what impact it might have on consumers and ratepayers.
We don't mean,
Further questions?
Mr Mayor, sorry, back to the horse. Would a position of a slight increase but not 50% be agreeable, just so that we're...
50 cents, was it?
Yeah, well, we've jumped 50 cents, which is a fair chunk, but if we're increasing everything else by 5 to 6% and taking on board Councillor Peoples and the other councillors, but are we, by not increasing it at all, and then maybe in 2 years' time, or next year jumping it to 650, we'll probably have the same argument and it'll never go up.
It's a good valid point. I'm happy to take the conversation back to that point, Councillor Plum. Well, actually, sorry, Councillor Peoples, you raised it. I know that there are alternate points of view here, so.
Well, Mr Mayor, to Dan's last point about that they never go up, I'm probably okay with that.
You're okay with it not going up?
At all, you know, for these, over time, because it's for what they're used for. So that's not a real concern to me, no.
Councillor Gleeson.
Oh, Mr Mayor, I think everything in our society, we, everything's going up. And Councillor Arthur, you were talking 6%.
Oh, like, make it 620 or something, like 6 to 650 is a big jump. That's closer to 10% than the 6%, but, and I know it's not in holistic figures a lot of money. We've probably burnt more money talking about it in this chamber today already than income, but yeah, I'm just concerned about not raising fees for things over time and then like a large jump because we have procrastinated on it.
It's the catch-up that's the concern to you.
And it's the same with rates. Like if we don't have, I know it's considerably different financial levels, but if we don't increase rates regularly and then jump it by 10 or 15%, that is a real shock to the pocket for a lot of people.
Officers, can somebody help me? Was our historical charge, we've undertaken significant reform of this fee structure in the last years. Was our historical charge less than $3 for horses? Around the $3 mark? Did we go from 3 to 6 or?
325, Mr Mayor.
Sorry?
I think it was 325.
325?
Then we went to 4, then we went to 6. So there's been a huge jump last year to 6.
Yeah, last year. And cattle went from $1 something to where they went up and then they went back because Councillor Peoples.
They were 325 as well, and horses and cattle were the same.
They were. Yeah, and I agree that they shouldn't be the same because there is a difference. There is a substantial difference. But so I'm going to go to other councillors, but I just thought that point was relevant. We did double. It is double at $6 what the historical level. So we've played a bit of catch up already, which both is an argument for and against the position you're taking. It's against it in saying, well, we've already been there for a while, but then it's also reflective that it was a big shock for people when it went from 3 to 4 and 4 to 6. So the merit of a few cents, if that's what council wants. Yeah, there's certainly a very good argument both ways here. Councillor Hanson.
Is there a possibility that they may be looking at some people who've got 2 or 3 horses where we have a discounted rate for second, third, rather than leave the rate where it is, put it up to the 650 and we have a discounted rate if they've got more than one?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the administration of it's probably not worth the hassle for the income.
I was going to flick straight to Paula.
It's the same as dollars, like whether someone has $2 or $4.
fairly obvious what she's thinking of that one.
I have no poker face, Mr Mayor, but yeah, it's the same as $1 for the camping.
Yeah.
The administration, for us to count the money, like all the coins, it's people ringing up, they're still saying it's $15 a night. So there's obviously places where we haven't captured the change of the fee as well, for camping.
Yeah.
But
and the administration for trying to track how many horses individuals have got for issuing
Oh,
invoices.
it's a nightmare.
Do you have a situation now where people, is there a number of itinerant horses? As in they're there for a week, they're gone for a week, and they don't want to pay for the week, or do they just pay for that whole time? Whether
They
the
pay
horse,
for the whole time.
right, so if someone takes a horse mustering somewhere for a fortnight, they're still actually paying their $6 to be on comp.
Yeah, we don't allow for on and off, because that would just be a nightmare too, so they pay their 3 months in advance.
And it would be, there's a number of people who do that.
Yeah, most people probably do that too.
Councillor Plum?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Paul, and they're happy with the $6, so they're quite happy to pay the $6.
No. No, it is expensive, especially when they're not on the common a lot of the time.
To you, Mr Mayor, I thought I'd just go back quickly and check through the older budgets to find out where the increases happened. So I just did 2016 and 2020. In 2016 it was $1.80. In 2020 it was $2.60. So.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to let it sit for this time. If I'm in the chamber next year, we can revisit it.
Councillors, we're happy to revert to our earlier decision on that then?
I shall remove my suggestion.
I'm going to back that we go back down as well in the light. I think that information that Jenny just gives us, and Paula alluded to, is certainly telling. That's a big lift over a couple of years. Mind you, it was a long way under where it should have been. It needed to lift. Clearly, some think it's lifted too far, so let's leave it where it is, shall we, for the time being?
Sounds a good idea.
But then also, Mr. Mayor, if mustering horses are probably not child's babies.
Well, I was wondering if anyone was going to make that comment. Yes, definitely. There is a difference there from somebody who's being paid $300.
However, a lot of children learn to muster on their pony and they take it
They
out
do.
mustering on ponies.
They do. Double-edged sword. All right, I think we should break the morning tea before we move to resolutions, because the resolutions will take a little bit of time, especially if you intend to debate any of them. Morning tea.